I know that you know this, but this is a hot issue out here about the rich dudes at Burning Man.
Right.
Do they make it, or are they going to break it?
Yeah. Yeah, and it really sort of blew up in September. What happened is this woman wrote a sort of tell-all account in September about her experience working as a bartender and server, or as she put it, a Sherpa in this Burning Man camp.
Well, they call them Sherpas.
Yeah.
They actually call them Sherpas there.
Yeah.
They're the servants at Burning Man.
Right, and this portrait that she wrote was incredibly unflattering, and it turns out that the guy who organized this camp was a guy named Jim Tannenbaum, who is the founder and CEO of Foresight Capital, which is a venture capital firm in San Francisco. Not only that, but he is also recently had joined the board of directors at the Burning Man Project, which is a nonprofit organization that runs this whole thing. So when she wrote this, it just blew up, and people were furious about, how this was violating everything that Burning Man stood for. And not only is it this sort of egregious, invasion of the 1%, but it's also by this guy who's supposed to be promoting the core Burning Man values.
Well, and those Burning Man values are, and I think they're cool, and it's an interesting thing. And I talk to people who go to Burning Man and come back in their lives, or they really feel like their lives are changed.
Yeah.
A new set of priorities, or reconnecting with their core priorities. And people have this, serious experience when they go to this thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and one of the 10 principles, and I think the one that was really at stake here, was sort of the idea of radical self-reliance, that everybody that goes there has to participate, volunteer, do things for themselves. And in the past, it's not, wealthy people have always been going to Burning Man, but what people liked about it was there was sort of this leveling effect that, even if you're a captain of industry or a celebrity, you throw on your costume, you go out there, you party like everybody else, you cook your meals like everybody else. And what upset people a lot about this camp was that, there was a, staff of, dozens of employees. Anyone that paid for the camp, they had to pay about $16,500 for the week. They were given wristbands. Anybody that didn't have a wristband wasn't necessarily welcome inside the camp to get drinks. And there was this sort of, exclusivity that really bothered people. I mean, it's one thing to throw a lot of money and spend a lot of money in a Burning Man camp, but if you do that, you're supposed to sort of welcome everybody in.
And make it open. It's one thing to be rich. It's another thing to wall yourself off at Burning Man.
Yeah.
We did this story last year around the time of Burning Man about this documentary, Spark, that got a lot of attention on Showtime, and it really sort of represented what the sort of core spirit of Burning Man was, all the way back to when it was on a beach in San Francisco. And that really captured the magic of it. But I wonder if because the magic is so magical, that the more disgusting aspects aren't really coming out about Burning Man.
Yeah, well, in some ways it reminds me of a lot of stories where you see these, a little startup, indie operation that has these core values, and then suddenly it explodes. It gets bigger and bigger, and how do you maintain those values? For the story, I ended up interviewing Larry Harvey, who's one of the co-founders of Burning Man, and he was really interesting. I mean, his point was essentially, some of these camps are kind of distasteful to us, but, from his perspective, he'd rather have the 1% coming to Burning Man, because ultimately he feels like Burning Man will change them more than they change Burning Man.
Oh, that's interesting. What an optimistic point of view.
Yeah.
Have you been, Felix?
I have not, no. Although this made me very curious. I think we should definitely be there this summer.
I don't know if I'm going to pull that off. It's a fascinating thing, and it really is. What's interesting to me is that the technology community here, at the very, very highest levels, people whose name I promise not to say, but CEOs of some of the very biggest companies in all of Silicon Valley, are both part of that rich man's row there at Burning Man, but really take this very seriously and feel like they're inspired by it.
Yeah, and it is a great thing. I mean, it's, the creative spirit, the art cars, you see what people build there. It's unbelievable, some of the things that people are making out in the desert. And again, as long as, you're willing to share everything you build with everybody else, I think people are happy to have, the tech CEOs come out there. It's the, bringing sort of the, one person that was at this camp and found it distasteful was describing it to me as sort of like bringing an LA nightclub or a Las Vegas nightclub into the middle of Burning Man. And I think that's really what has pissed people off the most about this and made it into such a controversy is fine, welcome, come out to Burning Man, everyone's welcome, it's the spirit of inclusivity, but when you're there, you gotta be open to everybody, you gotta share everything.